While the municipal protests are increasing in number every day, protests against private employers are also on the rise. Joining us now for more insight on the different vaccine mandates across the country is employment attorney at Reddock Law Group, Angela Reddock-Wright. Good morning, Angela. Nice to see you again. So how can municipal governments balance the rights of their workers with the safety of the population?
Well, it's a real challenge because the first priority of municipal governments and now the federal government and state governments across the country is to ensure that workers and the public is safe. And so trying to find a healthy balance between that is really tough. But the employers that are trying to strike that balance are doing it by saying, we're mandating a vaccine, but if you choose not to be vaccinated, then we're going to require that you be tested daily. In fact, in my own city of Los Angeles, the approach they've taken is for employees who choose not to be vaccinated as of a certain date, that they will have to pay for their own COVID tests, and that those tests will come out of their paychecks on a biweekly or a monthly basis. So many employers are saying, okay, you choose not to be vaccinated, that's okay, but we are going to require a daily COVID test, and you're going to have to pay for that test out of pocket. So some employers are choosing to be creative in terms of how they're thinking about it, as opposed to having just a blanket mandate of, in order to continue working here, you have to be vaccinated.
So when we have this conversation, I think, there is one point that people do make is, well, maybe COVID-19 should be considered an occupational hazard, right? If we're not going to have that blanket mandate that you just mentioned. So what do you think about that? Should that be in the same category as other occupational hazards?
Well, it's definitely rising to that level, because even as we can see today, and I'm not a health professional, but the numbers continue to be on the rise. And so there certainly is an argument that there is a public emergency, that this is not just about individual rights, but it's about protecting the public as a whole. And if that is the case, then yes, I do think it can be seen as an occupational hazard that qualifies under OSHA. And the federal government, for example, has even taken steps to create new regulations that qualifies COVID as a disability under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So for sure, our consciousness is being raised across the board in terms of how we're thinking about COVID and the seriousness of it.
Angela, we're also seeing job postings that require candidates to be vaccinated. Is that discriminatory?
It is not, unless employers, based on your COVID status, which is, like I said, it could now be considered a disability, unless they hold that against you. If you, for example, have long haul COVID issues, and if your employer holds that against you and doesn't follow the reasonable accommodation requirements or the interactive process, or if they treat you differently because you have a medical condition, then that is illegal. But just the mere fact that employers are asking or making it a condition for employees to have the vaccination in order to work there or to continue working there on its face is not illegal.
So, Angela, do you think then by employers doing that, by making sure that there is that vaccine requirement for any candidate, do you think that will actually get people vaccinated?
For some, yes. Many will comply. They need a job, or they don't have any objection to being vaccinated. So yes, but as we can see with protests across the country, both in the government among government employees as well as private sector employees, there are a number of people that, just based on principle or religious reasons or other reasons, object to the vaccination. And so under no circumstances will they get the vaccination, whether that means they're sacrificing a job that they already have or a job that they want in the future. So I expect that we'll see through these protests, we'll see lawsuits, we'll see challenges. The question remains is, will those lawsuits be successful?
Yeah, employment lawyers are going to be very busy. This truly is, I think, the fight of our times for at least the next year. Angela Reddock-Wright, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.